So you have to ask yourself, how does a giant frozen island, a place that's mostly uninhabitable, suddenly become the most valuable piece of real estate on Earth? The answer is pretty wild, and honestly, it could change everything we know.
It really all blew up when Donald Trump came out with this. Talk about blunt. We're going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not. Whoa. But this wasn't just some random thought. This was the moment a very old American ambition went public, and it made everyone ask one huge question.
So why is this massive block of ice suddenly at the center of a new superpowers showdown? Well, the answer is a crazy mix of global trade, super high-tech gear, and, of course, military power. But before we get into all that, we've got to understand what the prize even is.
All right, let's break it down. An island for sale? We need to understand the prize. What is Greenland really? Because the sheer scale of this place is, well, it's kind of mind-boggling.
For starters, it's the #1 largest island in the world. And I'm not talking big. It's bigger than Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Indonesia put together. Just wrap your head around that for a second. But its size is only part of the story.
Because a whopping 80% of that massive island is buried under ice. And we're talking a thick layer of ice, sometimes up to 2 kilometers deep. Temperatures hitting -30°C, that's just a normal Tuesday there. It's literally one of the toughest places to live on the entire planet. So you've got this gigantic landmass, and its total population is just 57,000 people. For comparison, that's about the size of a small town. And they're all clustered on the coast where it's, slightly less frozen. So the mystery just gets deeper, right? Why is everyone so obsessed with this huge, empty, frozen island?
Well, here's the thing. This is not a new idea. Not at all. America's pursuit of Greenland goes back over 100 years. They first tried to buy it way back in 1867, at the same time they bought Alaska. No dice. Then President Taft tried again in 1910. Nope. Then, after World War II, President Truman offered what was then a fortune, $100 million in solid gold. And every single time, the answer was no. So what gives? Why keep trying for over a century?
Okay, so the first big piece of the puzzle is something you've heard a million times. Location, location, location. And on the geopolitical chessboard, where you are is everything. Think of Greenland as the Arctic keystone. It's perfectly positioned, sitting smack dab between North America and Russia. From a military point of view, if you control Greenland, you basically control the entire Arctic region. It's the ultimate strategic high ground.
Now you might be thinking, wait, doesn't the US already have bases there? And you'd be right. But here's what's keeping the folks at the Pentagon up at night. See, Greenland is technically part of Denmark, but it's pushing hard for full independence. And an independent Greenland? Well, they could suddenly ask for way more money for those bases, or just tell the US to pack up and leave. Plus, with no army of its own, it would be incredibly vulnerable. A perfect spot for, say, Russia or China to gain a major foothold.
And at the heart of all this is the Patufic Space Base. This isn't just any base. It's home to a ridiculously important early warning radar. We're talking about the system that can spot an ICBM coming from Russia the second it's launched. It's America's tripwire. Losing control of that's not just a strategic loss, it's a direct threat to the US homeland. Okay, so military strategy is huge. But honestly, that's just scratching the surface. The real gold rush, the thing driving this absolute frenzy, is what's buried under all that ice. This is where the story gets really interesting. Think about your phone, your computer, electric cars, fighter jets. All of it runs on these things called rare earth elements. And get this, China currently controls something like 90% of the world's supply. That's not just an economic lever, it's a massive strategic weapon. And yeah, they've already started to use it, restricting exports to put pressure on other countries.
And guess what? Greenland is basically a giant frozen treasure chest packed with these exact minerals. We're talking neodymium for electric vehicles and wind turbines, gallium for AI chips and advanced radar, uranium for nuclear energy, silicon for all our semiconductors. Getting access to this stuff isn't just about making money, it's about breaking China's chokehold on the very materials that will build the future.
And it's not just minerals. We're also talking about energy. A lot of it. Current estimates suggest there are at least 31 times billion barrels of oil just off one part of Greenland's coast. And that's only what they've surveyed. Who knows what else is under all that ice?
And there's one more resource that's totally 21st century data. Or, more specifically, the physical infrastructure of the internet. The massive undersea cables that connect North America and Europe pass right by Greenland. Making sure those cables are secure from, being cut or tampered with, that's a huge deal. So, let's recap. We have an unbeatable strategic location. We have a treasure trove of resources. But there's a third element, a real game changer that's being created by climate change itself. And this one could change everything.
Just look at this. This is the new global highway. For decades, if you wanted to ship goods from Asia to Europe, you had to go the long way around, through the Suez Canal. It adds thousands of kilometers, 10 to 15 days of travel, and costs a fortune in fuel and fees. But now, as the Arctic ice melts, the Northwest Passage is becoming a reality. It's shorter, faster, and cheaper. This isn't just a shortcut, it's a complete revolution in global trade.
And Greenland sits right at the entrance to this new superhighway. Think about it. The country that controls this route becomes the gatekeeper of global trade. They essentially get to put up a toll booth on the world's most important new shipping lane. The value of that kind of power is, well, it's almost impossible to calculate.
Okay, so now we see the whole picture, right? Military high ground, a resource jackpot that could break China's monopoly, and control over a new global trade superhighway. The prize is absolutely massive. But what's the price of control? What happens if America actually tries to take it?
Well, here's the immediate giant roadblock. Greenland is part of Denmark, and Denmark is a founding member of NATO. And the absolute core idea of NATO, Article 5, is that an attack on one is an attack on all. So what happens if the leader of NATO, the United States, makes a hostile move on another member? The entire alliance, the bedrock of Western security for 75 years, could just break.
And the global fallout would be immediate. It's like a chain reaction. Step 1, the U.S. becomes the sole Arctic superpower. But Step 2, trust between the U.S. and Europe completely collapses, maybe forever. Step 3, China's dominance over critical minerals is broken, which would have huge economic ripples. And while all this is happening, you've got Step 4, the massive environmental threat from mining in a fragile ecosystem. And Step 5, the very real risk that Greenland's indigenous people would lose their autonomy and their culture. It's a heavy price.
So this is a 100-year decision, and the future really hangs in the balance. You see, the melting ice up there isn't just creating new shortcuts for container ships. It's kicking off a new and pretty dangerous chapter of great power competition. What happens in Greenland is absolutely not going to stay in Greenland. It's a decision that could set the course for the rest of the 21st century.
So this whole scramble for Greenland really forces us to ask a pretty chilling question. Will its fate lead to a new path of peace and cooperation in a changing world? Or are we watching the very first moves on a chessboard that leads to World